We're in the milking parlour. I'm not in it for a good reason. But for starters, this morning when I was milking, this first unit here had a problem. It was milking the cow, and I noticed, well, it wasn't milking the cow properly. There was very little milk coming from the cow. Another thing I noticed was, when the cluster was on, there was no pulsation. And that is controlled by this lad here. Each unit has one of these, which is called a regulator. There's one for every unit. And that there basically drives a pulse down each one of these pipes. And that goes from side to side on this. So it gives you that rocking motion from side to side as it's pulsing and squeezing in on the cow's teeth. When that doesn't happen, the cow's not milking. There's air sucking alright, which is all that's doing is annoying the cow, but it's not actually milking the cow. So I have to cap of this regulator, and I'm going to check the wiring first. Just going to quick eyeball across the wire, and there's a junction box over there. So one junction box for every 4 regulators. So I'm going to check all the wiring first. I know the rest of them all work, and see that we have an issue there that's quite clear to us before we start routing further. Don't see anything wrong there. No corrosion or anything. The junction box is here and it's notoriously brittle. My junction box is in bits. That's got real brittle. Just literally touch it, it's just like paper. Yeah, that's great. Now, there's the wires coming in here. Everything's powered off at the minute. I'm just checking. See what we have here. So I'm going to turn on the milk machine. I'm going to run it. I'm going to just check to see, is it just one side or is it both sides that's doing it? Right, so I don't know if you can hear this, but listen. That's working now. So there's obviously a loose connection in there, so I'm going to just go through the connections. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to put a new junction box in there as well. And that's working. And that's working. Release the air. Right. So we're all fixed there now and we're rewired. I put a new junction box on it. I'm going to have to run the machine and all it's working fine. So happy days. If it all goes like that, we'll be flying. At least I don't need a new regulator. I did put a new block connector into it as well. There was no corrosion in it, but just in case. And I also put a drop of solder on the wires. So several wires put together and were rolled together and jammed into a block connector. Sometimes that can come kind of loose, and the block connector itself can cut through the wire. But hopefully that's the problem fixed. We'll not have to address that again. Now the bigger problem is vacuum on this machine. I've noticed in the last year that our cell count has been slightly increasing. And it's getting to the point where it's borderline, and we have done a lot of checks and we have had the pulsation and everything checked on the machine and we couldn't find any issues. To explain that better is this machine runs on vacuum. Just like a hoover, imagine a hoover. And the vacuum comes down these lines, and the vacuum is what takes the milk from the cows, just putting it simple. That vacuum comes from a vacuum pump, which is in our little shed here beside you. I'll show it in a minute. Our vacuum pump at the moment is called a VP76, and it's classed to be fine to run an 8 unit machine like this. That's the reason why we have it in. I actually have 2 of those pumps. I have that one, which I got new liners put in. I done it myself when we fitted this whole milking parlour, and I have a spare one that needs liners up in the attic there, just in case anything ever go wrong with it. But speaking to my man the last time, he said your reserve is very low, although the vacuum you have runs the machine. If the machine was to fall off a cow, one of these clusters would fall off the cow and air was to be released, or even when you're putting it on a cow and you release some air, a vacuum will drop quite significantly. And I noticed this last while on this last unit, when I put it on the first 7 cows and I get to the last unit, there's not an awful lot of vacuum there. Sometimes you nearly think there's something wrong, and I've noticed that more so this last while. So my pump could be starting to fail and my reserve is getting lower, but there are a couple of things he told me to check first, and that is our wash line here comes to an elbow in the back, and he told me to open that and make sure there's nothing stuffed in there. So in here there's a little plastic spread plate, which the water comes in here, hits that spread plate and it fires it all over the jar. So he said take that off, make sure that's not stuffed, and make sure that's not stuffed, and then we'll see what we can do after that. So let's do that now, and hopefully there is something in it and that'll solve another problem. Oh, there's nothing in there. Oh, that's spotless. I'm just going to screw this fella off here as well. I'll have a proper look down that, because I can see what he means. Something comes down here and hits this 90 degree. If there was a piece of plastic or something, it would get caught there. Well, as you can see down there, there's nothing in that. That's clean and free. Be real careful here. This place is all frozen, and you would literally That's just a sheet of ice. You'll break your neck on it at the moment. So we're in the milking machine area here. You don't be in this place too often. And this is where my milking machine is. So all you have here is an electric motor which drives a vacuum pump. And this is what we're talking about. This is what creates the vacuum on the machine. And the vacuum makes its way up and across there and down the floor into the parlour. This lower pipe here is going out to a muffler. Just basically like a silencer on a car. So the story with this is, what I'm considering doing is putting a new pump in here. I have been on the internet looking around and I have seen a few second-hand VP77s, which will be the next one up. And a VP77 will do up to a, I'm not sure if it's up to a 12 unit. It will do a 12 unit anyway. Not sure if it does above that or not, but it would be plenty for what we have. First of all, I'm going to get a phone call now in an hour's time from a DeLaval man. Look at the report that we had again when we did do our vacuum test, and just we're going to chat it over and see what the best options is. So we'll let you know in a wee while how that works out. Probably Sunday morning where you are, but it's Tuesday morning where I am. There's our first bull calf, and these are our two heifer calves here. And there's Hudson. So it's just gone 9:15, just after coming back from running the kids to school. It's an awkward morning. I have to be really careful where I stand here because everywhere is just a sheet of ice. The doors are nearly stuck closed. You can see there's plenty of ice on them. Last night it was -5. The night before it was -5 as well. I got the machine working this morning, but it took about 40 minutes to get it working, and that was a long time. There was a couple of reasons for that. Now I do break the machine down like this, I shake all the water out. So it wasn't that there was so much water laying in it, it was actually seals. The rubber seals, and everything that has a bit of rubber or rubber seal in it was frozen solid. And the tops of this jar here I had to heat up because the jar that's already frozen since this morning. The inside of that jar is all frozen now again. I have to warm that up steadily without cracking the glass and get that to seal. And then other little things as well here, and tops of the jars sometimes give trouble. These here actually give trouble too. There's a little fella in there, a little rubber fella, when you pull the button up this creates a seal, but when they're frozen and hard they don't create that seal, so they have to be heated up as well. And when you get a heap of things on top of other, it takes time. Hot water is completely frozen out, and the only reason our cold water is working is because it left it kind of trickling last night. That's a pain in the backside when you're feeding calves, because I depend on my hot water. Well, for getting the machine working for starters it would have been handy, but also for heating the milk of the calves when I'm done milking. So I had to go in and out of my parents' house beside me 5 or 6 times and watching a kettle to boil and in and out and in and out and out. But I had to keep an eye on the time too because school run was coming again me. So yeah, it puts a wee bit extra pressure on you. The milk pump then decided it didn't want to work. It was working when I started, but it froze when I got started before the milk got into it. And what happened was then it overflowed and it put the milk through the vacuum line and out onto the yard through the exhaust of the machine. You can see the pound of milk that came out of the exhaust. So now I'm going to have to turn the machine on. I'm going to have to flush diesel through the milk pump just to get rid of all the residue of milk, because that will freeze in the milk pump if it hasn't already. And yeah, my morning was a good one. One little drinker trickling here, the Calving pen. I'm going to turn it off now shortly. You can see the size of the ice from the gate. If I turn that off, and we lose water to all our houses, and if we lose water then we are going to be in bother, because I'm going to be drawing water then to all the cattle and I don't want to be doing that. I would still say that our drinkers are frozen. Yeah. In here now with the cows, be interested to see if they got water. Looking good from here. I can hear it even, so the cows have water. The heifers here don't have water, so I'm going to put the blowtorch on it in about an hour's time and see can I get water up into them drinkers and get that working. But I see. There we go. I'm going to drive it over here to the sun, and the sun in a few minutes will get rid of all this ice in the window. There we have it. Let's do a sun out in the sun for a while myself. So there's 10 cows in this batch here, and them 10 cows will pretty much calve around the same time, because looking at them there, the way they're sprung up, you just couldn't pick between them. And the due date's within 3 days of others, so they're all going to calve very soon, and that's going to happen the next day or so, judging by what I'm looking at when I was in there. We have 3 heifers in here that's going to calve within the next week, definitely. And 2 others will be before the end of the month, and then the rest of them will be on in February. Well, the sun's doing its job anyway. Considering the weather we're having, this would be a great joke if it worked. And the problem is it doesn't work. It is a space heater. It's an old one I bought about 7 or 8 years ago, and it wasn't a great shape, and I bought it. Just a bit rusty and crusty, but it did work for a while. I managed to get it working. I bought it as a non-runner, fixed it up a bit and got it working, but it doesn't work now anyway. It's been sitting for the last 3 years, I'd say, unused. So I'm going to try to get it fired up today, because it would be very handy heating up the milking parlour and the dairy and things in the mornings, or even around the milking machine and stuff. So let's see, can we do something with it. So at the minute it's plugged in. Just going to turn it on. It does fire up. But it's not lighting, so it's not igniting. So let's turn it off, hook it off with the power supply, and we'll open it up and see what's going on. We're just going to start a couple of simple things right off the bat. These are a couple of wires here, the spade connectors, so just hanging on. Just going to squeeze them in and tighten them. Oh, sorry, so I've seen something here, which is going to be complicated to fix. Spade connector has broken off here. How can I solder that? There's not much left to solder to. Beat it up first now. Right, so that's soldered on. That's not going to go nowhere. So we can still have that fixed. So let's just fire it up without the cap on it and see will that make a difference. Oh yeah. I think it's running a bit rich, but maybe it's just the fact that it has been running 3 years and it's pouring off all the old stuff out of it, because you can see smoke coming from it down below, but it's running, and that was easy. So just when it's turning itself off, you can see the smoke and stuff that's coming. That's old diesel that has leaked underneath this kind of frame that goes around it, so that's where the smoke's coming from. That'll burn off in about 5-10 minutes of use. So put it back together again. We're going to stick it in the milking parlour, and hopefully it'll thaw out the pipes that are still frozen in our parlour, and it'll be very handy. Running there perfect. It's running for the past 15 minutes, and all that old smoke and stuff is burnt away. There's no smoke now at all from it, so it's working fine. Be interesting to see now when I run it for a while, will it thaw out the hot water pipes? That's what I want to really get thawed out. It's getting warmer in here, it's still cold. I may have to go down and seal a few holes, like underneath the doors down there. A lot of the hot air is escaping. Starting to see a thaw coming on the roof now since I set it up. Starting to drip nicely, so there is heat getting into the place. Alright, so I'm in the calf house here now, and these are our first 2 heifer calves you've seen in the last video. Here's Hope, and then this is Daisy here. So you know the numbers now, 4-7 and 4-8. And then this morning at 6 AM we had not 1 but 2, and not different cows. These are actually twins. We had twin male calves, good sized calves for being twins. So that's the first set of twins for the year, unexpected. Normally, a lot of the time you can tell when a cow's going to have twins. Not always, but you can kind of see some of the characteristics. But I was completely fooled by this one. Second calver as well. I'd rather not see twin calves. Sometimes it can be quite hard on the cow, although she's 100% fine. She's actually after passing her cleaning now completely, which is great. It's 3:30 now in the evening. Now these other calves all got a suck, I think, from the mother, first feed from their own mother. But not these ones. Reason being was the 2 of them were mad to drink. Real hungry and mad to drink, which is great. But they were bouncing off other, and they were creating more fuss than anything, and they were knocking each other away from where they need to be. And so I put her into the parlour and I milked her, and she just had enough to feed both calves. We got a good feed into them. They were very hungry and they were looking for more, and I can still see them there sucking away and I'm mad for more. So you know what? I've got stuff here for them. So just in the dairy here I have 2 bottles, 2-litre milk containers here, and this has got colostrum in it. You can see by the colour. I have an old freezer out in the shed, and it'll fill it as full as I can with colostrum. As many ECs as I can put into it, because you'll always get a cow or so that mightn't have enough milk to feed a calf, or it's the heifer and she doesn't give her milk first time or whatever. You just don't know. Because the reality is the first feeds a calf get are the most important, and getting enough colostrum into a calf so its immune system gets a proper kick is really, really important. So what I'm doing at the moment is these are fairly well thawed. I change this water out, put hot water in again to get the milk nice and warm, and I'm going to give them as much as they'll drink. Come on, man. Up you get. Come on, come on, come on. Up you get. Up. There you are. Number 2. Our serviceman has been here, he's been gone through the machine, and he has pinpointed a couple of things that could be wrong. Well, he actually pinpointed a couple of things that is wrong. So on the top here you have this little guy here. Oh, I'm not sure what the name of the bloody thing is. It's not a regulator. Someone comment what the name of that is. But every one of them had the same as this one here, bar this one. This one had an old style one. There's a wee diaphragm in them, and every one of these, a little cup diaphragm, every year or 2 years, they do crack. And how you know on these that you have a problem with the diaphragm is this little rubber flap here does hang down, it doesn't suck up, and you'd hear air coming out. You'll know then there's a hole in the diaphragm. You'd spot it straight away. But on the older one that was in, you wouldn't hear that. You wouldn't hear that noise. So he took the old one off, looked at the diaphragm, and it was completely cracked open. So that, he says, is your problem with this last unit. Instead of replacing the diaphragm, we just put a brand new one on, the same as the rest. So we have the same on, and at least the next time the diaphragm goes, we'll see it. We have good news on the pump. Well, hopefully it's good news. We won't have to replace it after all. So our man was looking at this and he said, how about we just put a bigger pulley on here on your motor, and that will drive their pump faster, creating obviously more vacuum. So here's the pulley we took off. There's not a huge difference in size. There's the print there if anybody knows. We put a slightly larger one on it, and he said that'll go for a while. You'll definitely see an increase in vacuum before you go replacing your vacuum pump, because if you don't need to do it, there's no point in doing it. So that is that problem solved, hopefully. Just when I go in here, I hope this is it. There is the old valve that was on top of that jar. There's the old one that we had, so you can see the difference in the two. But there's the little diaphragm that fits into them cups. I always keep a spare one. I actually have another one in the fridge out there, just in case of a crack on a Sunday morning, along with the little springs that do break on the switches. The only issue is because the motor is turning faster, it's louder, and it already was loud. So we might change the way this is. It's coming out in the yard at the minute, and the cows have a habit of hitting it. Hence the reason it's pushed in, but it's not broken. What we might do is we might bring it out that back wall there, because that sound travels from there into the parlour. And it is loud when you're milking. And just to show you one other thing for a do leave, but you can see a square and bricks versus the rest of this plastered. Well, our old milk tank compressor used to sit here, and the fan for that was out through that wall. So once we put in the new tank, we bricked that up, and that's the reason why we didn't put this exhaust going straight out there, because of that compressor. But now with it gone, it's only a matter of bringing a U-bend across there and straight out the back, and that'll get rid of a lot of the sounds coming into the parlour. So I'll look around for a second hand one first, and if we can't get one, we'll put a new one on it, and that'll deaden that sound completely. Well, the thing is, when I go up here, there'll be another one at the door. She's ready to calve as well. Yeah, 20, you stay where you are, and 61, you stay where you are. Come on, girl. Right, so there's our next girl in, third calver. She is about 4 days by her time, and this morning I just noticed that the bones were gone. They were actually gone last night. I was watching her last night as well, but bags are definitely a lot fuller than it was yesterday even. So she'll be calved shortly. She's already sick. Now when we say sick, if you're not from the farm background, we don't mean she's actually sick. It's just a term we use on a lot of farms. She's sick of the calving. She's in labour. That's all it means. So she'll lay down pretty much straight away when I go away. I just know a bit of characteristics of them. and she'll be calving in 2 hours. I'm hoping that's the case, because in that pen where I just took her out, there's 2 more cows that are exactly in the same, well, just not sick yet, but I'm hoping they will be before the end of the day is out. And the pen beside them, these 3 here, I've moved up from the lower pen because they are going to calve as well. They'll be calved tomorrow, if not tonight. I put an extra gate in here, so I'm separating the cows out as I see them getting closer to calving, just moving them up gradually. That way at night, I have a PTZ up there, camera, where I can move it about, and rather than having to search through the whole house, I can just focus on the one area of the cows that are closest and the ones that I'm really watching. And it just makes life a wee bit easier. Anyway, we'll leave her be. Alright, so Mum will get up now in a second. Once she finds it wriggling about behind her, there she goes. Just like that, she gets up. And there is a calf popped out. I just reached in, I couldn't help it. Let's give the leg a lift to see what it was. It's a heifer calf. A well-marked heifer calf, just like Mum. Exact same markings, mostly all black. If you see the back of the leg, the way it comes down, white. And if you look at Mum, she's very similar. So yeah, happy days. I'm away to get lunch. There's 2 more before the end of today, but that's for another time. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Jesus, the rain. Oh my god, the street is completely flooded.
No cows have been milked as of yet, and you see here now the way the wall is cracked the whole way across here. As soon as that first storm had passed, the second one came barreling in. An absolute monster.